The tent is silent, except for the crackle of a single oil lamp. Outside, beyond the canvas walls, 10,000 soldiers sleep beneath the stars of the Danube frontier. The air smells of smoke and cold earth. It is late past the third watch, and the empire's most powerful man sits alone with a worn scroll of parchment across his knees. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, ruler of the known world, dips his stylus in ink. He does not write proclamations. He does not draft letters to the Senate or military orders for the morning's march. Instead, he writes to himself, a private dialogue, a reminder. You have power over your mind, he scratches into the wax, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The words are not meant for history. They are meant for tomorrow, for the next moment of doubt, the next wave of grief, the next test of his resolve. He is 58 years old. His body aches from the saddle. His son, his only surviving son, waits in Rome, dissolute and unprepared. The plague has taken millions. The northern tribes press the frontier. Betrayals nest in his own court. And yet here, in this tent, there is something unshakable, a fortress no enemy can breach. He calls it the inner citadel. This is not a story about a perfect man. Marcus Aurelius was not untouched by sorrow. He buried children. He endured chronic pain. He ruled during one of Rome's darkest centuries, a time of war and pestilence that nearly broke the empire. He did not choose philosophy as an escape from suffering. He chose it as a method of living through suffering without being destroyed by it. And every night, often by lamplight in a military camp, far from the marble halls of power, he returned to a practice. He wrote, not for publication, not for applause. He wrote to steady his own mind, to remember what mattered, to anchor himself in principles that could withstand the chaos pressing in from every side. These writings later gathered and called. The meditations were never meant to be read by anyone else. They are raw, repetitive, unpolished. They circle the same truths again and again, as if he needed to hear them 100 times before they could take root. But this is precisely why they endure, because they are not the polished pronouncements of a sage on a mountaintop. They are the working notes of a man trying to stay sane, trying to stay good, in a world that offered him every reason to despair or to harden into cruelty. And tonight, as you prepare for rest, you are invited into that same practice, not to memorize doctrine, not to perform philosophy, but to inhabit a way of seeing that transforms how you meet the world and how you meet yourself. You are entering the inner citadel. There are no walls here, no gates, no guards. The citadel is not a place, it is a practice, a discipline of attention, a training of thought that makes you, in Marcus's words, like a rocky promontory against which the waves continually crash. It stands unmoved, and the raging sea falls still around it. This is Stoicism, not as a cold rejection of emotion, but as a warm and grounded acceptance of reality, not as resignation, but as radical responsibility, not as detachment, but as deep, clear-eyed engagement with what is true. And the promise, quiet, steady, repeatable, is this: if you can govern your own mind, nothing outside you can truly harm you. Let that settle. No circumstance, no betrayal, no loss, no insult, no failure of the body can reach the part of you that chooses how to respond. That part remains free, always, even in chains, even in grief, even at the edge of death. Marcus knew this not as theory but as necessity, and over the next 3 hours His voice across 2 millennia will walk with you through the core of his philosophy, each chapter a threshold, each teaching a tool, each reflection a doorway into the kind of calm that does not depend on the world behaving as you wish. You will learn the disciplines he practiced, the mental exercises he repeated, the perspectives he trained himself to hold, even when his emotions screamed otherwise. You will meet the Stoic universe, rational, ordered, vast, indifferent to your preferences but not to your participation. You will see how he reconciled duty with compassion, reason with love, acceptance with action. You will encounter the dichotomy of control, the most liberating idea in all of Stoic thought. And you will find that philosophy, for Marcus, was never about knowing. It was about doing, training, returning again and again to the practices that make a human life bearable and beautiful. This is not a lecture. It is a long, slow walk through a mind that has been tested and did not break. So let the lamp burn low. Let the day's weight fall away. Let your breathing soften into the rhythm of these words. The citadel is not somewhere you go. It is what you become, one thought at a time, when you remember what is yours to command. And the first discipline, the foundation of everything else, is learning how to think. Marcus begins, as he often does, with the morning. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, he writes, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. The mind resists. It wants comfort, delay, escape. This is not failure. This is design. The untrained mind will always drift toward ease. It will magnify grievances, catastrophize futures, replay old wounds. It will churn with commentary, judgment, narrative. And so the first discipline is this: to notice the quality of your thinking and to shape it deliberately, not to suppress thought, not to transcend thought, but to take responsibility for it. Because here is the Stoic insight that changes everything. The thing that disturbs you is not the event itself, but your judgment about the event. A door slams. That is a fact. Air pressure, wood, hinges. The anger you feel is not in the door. It is in your interpretation. Someone ignored you at a gathering. The hurt is not in their glance. It is in the story you tell yourself about what their glance means. Strip away the judgment, Marcus insists, and you strip away the disturbance. This does not mean you will feel nothing. Stoics are not numb. They feel grief, frustration, affection, joy, but they do not add suffering on top of the feeling by telling themselves that what happened should not have happened, or that they are uniquely cursed, or that the universe has wronged them. They see clearly, and seeing clearly, they suffer less. Let's try it now, gently. Think of something small that annoyed you recently: a delayed train, a curt email, a forgotten task. Now, name the bare fact, without interpretation. The train arrived 12 minutes late. The email contained 8 words. The task was not completed by evening. Notice what happens when you remove the added layer. This always happens to me, or they don't respect me, or I'm falling behind and it's a disaster. The event remains, but the spiral stops. This is the discipline of thought. And it is a discipline, not a one-time realization, but a practice you return to 1,000 times a day. Marcus calls it the art of living. And the first stroke of that art is learning to separate impression from judgment, fact from story, what is from what you fear it means. He knew this because he lived in a world drenched in judgment. Courtiers whispered, senators plotted, historians would measure his reign. The weight of Rome's future pressed on every decision. He could have drowned in interpretation, in the endless second-guessing of what others thought, what history would say, whether he was enough. Instead, he practiced returning to the present fact. You are not your reputation, he reminds himself. You are not the sum of others' opinions. You are a rational soul, capable of virtue, and that is all that is required. This is not arrogance, it is humility. It is the humility of recognizing that you are not the center of the universe, that the cosmos does not owe you comfort or fairness, and that your task is not to be admired, but to act rightly with the material you are given. And the material you are given, always, is this moment, not yesterday's regret, not tomorrow's dread, this breath, this choice, this thought, now, which you can steer. Marcus practiced a simple exercise, one you can borrow tonight as you drift toward sleep. When a troubling thought arises, worry, resentment, shame, he would name it, out loud or silently. This is a thought about the future. This is a judgment about someone's intentions. This is a story I am telling myself. And then, like a kind teacher correcting a student, he would offer himself the truth. I do not know the future. I do not know their heart. I do not need to believe every story my mind produces. The thought does not vanish, but it loses its grip. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices them, and that awareness can choose which thoughts to water and which to let wither. This is the first liberation. And it is available now, not someday when you are wiser or calmer or more disciplined, but now, in the very next thought you allow to pass through your mind. But of course, the question arises, if thoughts are not simply facts, if the mind can be trained, then what is true? What can be relied upon? And here Marcus turns to something older and larger than any human mind. There is an order to things, not the order you might wish for, not comfort or convenience, but an order nonetheless, a rationality, a structure, a logos that runs through everything from the spin of galaxies to the unfurling of a fern. The Stoics called it logos, reason, the governing principle, the intelligence embedded in nature itself. Marcus saw it everywhere, in the way a wound heals, in the way water finds its level, in the way a seed, given soil and time, becomes exactly what it was meant to become, not chaotically, not randomly, but according to a pattern, and human beings, he believed, are part of that pattern. We are not separate from nature. We are nature, waking up to itself, capable of reason because the universe itself is reasonable. This is not a distant, cold cosmos. It is not a machine indifferent to meaning. For the Stoics, the universe is alive with purpose. It is rational will unfolding. And you, this particular cluster of atoms, reading these words, feeling the weight of your body, breathing in and out, are a temporary expression of that same rational will. You are a fragment of the whole, and the whole is present in you. Marcus returns to this again and again when the weight of empire presses too hard, when the decisions are impossible, when grief or exhaustion threatens to break him. He reminds himself, you are a part of the cosmic order. You are not fighting against nature. You are nature, doing what nature does. This is not passivity. It is perspective. You are not the emperor of the universe. You are not in charge of outcomes, but you are in charge of your own reason, your own will, your own participation in the rational order. And when you align yourself with that order, when you stop demanding that the universe conform to your preferences and instead ask, what does this moment ask of me? You find a profound and unshakable peace. Imagine it this way. You are a single note in a vast symphony. You do not choose when you sound or for how long, but you can choose to play your note clearly, fully, in harmony with the music already unfolding. That is enough, more than enough, because the symphony does not depend on your note being louder or longer or more beautiful than the others. It depends on each note showing up, true to its pitch, for as long as it is called to sound. Marcus asks himself over and over, what is my role here? What does the Logos ask of me in this situation? Not what do I want, not what would be easiest, but what is the rational, virtuous response to what is actually happening? Sometimes the answer is patience. Sometimes it is action. Sometimes it is grief, felt fully and without resistance. Sometimes it is laughter at the absurdity of human pretension. But always the answer is found by consulting nature, by observing what is true, what is necessary, what serves the whole. This is not a mystical teaching, though it sounds like one. It is practical, brutally practical. If you are sick, the Logos does not ask you to run a marathon. It asks you to rest and heal. If someone wrongs you, the Logos does not ask you to seek revenge. It asks you to see them as a fellow fragment of the whole, acting out of ignorance, and to respond with clarity rather than spite. If you are standing at the edge of death, and Marcus knew he might die any night on campaign, far from home the Logos does not ask you to rage or cling. It asks you to let go, as a leaf lets go of the branch when autumn comes. You are not separate from this order. You cannot be. Even your resistance to it is part of it. Even your suffering, your confusion, your fear, all of it is the universe exploring what it is to be human, to be conscious, to be mortal. And when you stop fighting that, when you say yes to your participation, something extraordinary happens. You relax into the present, not because the present is always pleasant, but because you are no longer at war with reality. And the first fruit of that peace is this: you begin to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. You begin to accept. Acceptance is not surrender. It is not lying down before injustice or passivity in the face of harm. It is not a shrug, a sigh, a giving up. Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, is clear-eyed recognition of what is true. It is the willingness to say, this is happening. I did not choose it, but here it is. Now, what can I do with it? Marcus writes, accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs? This sounds at first almost cruel. What of tragedy? What of unfairness? What of the child who dies, the friend who betrays, the body that fails long before it should? The Stoic answer is not to deny the pain of these things. It is to refuse to add a second layer of suffering by insisting that they should not have happened. They did happen. That is the reality. And reality, always, is where you must begin, because the alternative, spending your life arguing with what is a particular kind of madness. It is exhausting, it is fruitless, and it blinds you to the choices still available. Marcus knew this intimately. His reign was marked by crises he did not cause and could not fully control. Plague swept through the empire. War raged on the borders. Floods, famine, betrayal. He could have spent every waking hour raging at the gods, lamenting his fate, wishing he had been born in a gentler time. Instead, he chose to ask, given this, what now? This is acceptance. Not as an ending, but as a beginning. You accept the hand you are dealt so that you can play it well. And here is the deeper Stoic claim. The universe is not chaotic. It is not random. What happens to you is not meaningless accident. It is part of the vast, interwoven pattern of cause and effect, the unfolding of logos. You may not see the pattern. You may not understand why this loss, why now, why you. But the Stoics believed that nothing happens outside the cosmic order. Everything is connected. Every event is, in some sense, necessary, not because it is good, but because it follows from everything that came before. And if it is part of the whole, then it is in a strange way exactly what the moment requires, not for your comfort, not for your happiness, but for the continuing existence of the cosmos itself. This is a challenging teaching. It asks you to trust something larger than your own perspective. It asks you to consider that your suffering, while real and painful, is not evidence that the universe is broken. It is evidence that you are part of something vast and interconnected, where every ripple has consequences, and every consequence unfolds according to necessity. Let that sit for a moment, gently. You do not have to believe it fully, but try it on. Try living, just for tonight, as if everything that has happened to you, every wound, every loss, every disappointment, was somehow, mysteriously, part of your becoming. Not because you deserved it, not because it was punishment or reward, but because this is the shape your life has taken, and the only life you can live is the one you have. And within that life, within this shape, there is still room for choice. You can choose how you interpret what happened. You can choose how you respond. You can choose which version of yourself you bring to the next moment. This is the paradox at the heart of Stoicism. Total acceptance of what is, combined with total responsibility for what you do with it. You do not control the storm, but you control the sails. Marcus writes, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." Both halves are true. The universe will change. It will aid you, test you, take from you, give to you, and finally dissolve you back into the elements. That is fate. That is necessity. That is the nature of being a temporary, embodied creature in a cosmos that does not pause for anyone. But your thoughts, the meaning you make, the stories you tell, the judgments you hold, those are yours. And so, paradoxically, you are both utterly constrained and utterly free. You cannot stop the river, but you can learn to swim. And the first stroke in learning to swim is this: stop wishing the river were different. It is what it is. Cold or warm, fast or slow, clear or muddy, this is the water, and you are in it. Now, what will you do? Everything is temporary. The meal you ate today will be gone by morning. The body you inhabit is, even now, shedding cells, aging, moving toward its end. The people you love will change. The certainties you cling to will crack. The empire Marcus ruled the eternal city, the unconquerable legions would fall within centuries. He knew this. He meditated on it daily, not morbidly, not with despair, but with a kind of calm wonder. You could leave life right now, he writes. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is not an invitation to anxiety. It is an invitation to clarity. If this were your last day, would you spend it in resentment? Would you waste hours nursing a grudge, replaying an argument, worrying about a future that may never come? Or would you soften? Would you notice the light slanting through the window, the warmth of a hand, the simple fact of being alive, here, now, with these few hours still yours to shape. The Stoics practiced memento mori, remember that you will die, not to frighten themselves, but to wake themselves up, because forgetting death is what makes us small. It is what makes us petty, grasping, anxious. When we live as if we have infinite time, we waste the time we have. We delay the conversation. We postpone the forgiveness. We hoard our love as if it were something we could save for later. But there is no later. There is only now, and now, and now, each moment arriving and dissolving like breath. And when you remember this, when you feel it, not just think it, everything shifts. The small annoyances lose their weight. The grudges seem absurd. The need to be right, to win, to be seen as impressive, all of it falls away, revealed as the distraction it always was. What remains? The things that actually matter. Kindness, integrity, presence, the quality of your attention, the courage to act according to your values, even when it costs you, the willingness to love fully, knowing that loss is woven into every attachment. Marcus looked at his children and knew they might die before him. They did, most of them. He looked at his own hands and knew they would one day stiffen and fail. He looked at the throne and knew that empires, like men, return to dust. And this awareness did not paralyze him. It freed him, because when you know that time is short, you stop waiting for permission to live. You stop postponing joy. You stop saving your best self for some imaginary future when everything is finally in order. You stop treating this day as a dress rehearsal for a real life that will begin someday. This is the real life, this moment, this breath, this choice, and it is fleeting. So, what will you do with it? Marcus gives a practice. Tonight, before sleep, imagine that this day was your last. Not in terror, but in gratitude. Replay the hours. Notice what you did that aligned with your values. Notice what you said that was true. Notice the moments you were kind, patient, present, and then notice what you avoided, what you postponed, what you let fear or pride or distraction steal from you. Not as judgment, as information, because tomorrow, if it comes, and it is not guaranteed you will have another chance, another day to practice dying well by learning to live well. And living well, for the Stoics, means living according to nature, which means living according to reason, which means recognizing what is within your control and letting go of everything else. Which brings us to the most liberating idea in all of Stoic philosophy, the idea that will, if you let it, change how you meet every moment of your life. There are things you control, and there are things you do not. That is the foundation. That is the hinge on which all of Stoicism turns. Epictetus, the Stoic teacher Marcus revered, said it plainly, some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Up to us, our judgments, our intentions, our responses, our values, our effort. Not up to us, other people's opinions, the weather, the past, the outcome of our actions, the length of our life, our body's ultimate fate. Most human suffering comes from confusing the two, from trying to control what cannot be controlled, from neglecting what can. You cannot control whether someone loves you, but you can control whether you are loving. You cannot control whether you succeed, but you can control whether you try with full integrity. You cannot control whether your body stays healthy, but you can control how you treat it and how you respond when it fails. The dichotomy is clean, simple, and endlessly difficult to apply. Because the mind wants to control everything. It wants guarantees. It wants to ensure outcomes, manage perceptions, prevent loss. And so it spends enormous energy pushing on doors that do not open, while neglecting the one door that is always open, the door of your own will. Marcus writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Read that again, slowly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. This does not mean you are passive. It does not mean you do not act, do not try, do not work to change what can be changed. It means you pour your energy into the place where you actually have agency. You focus on how you show up, not on whether the world rewards you for showing up. You focus on your own character, not on the character of others. You focus on effort, not on outcome. And paradoxically, this is where real power lives. Because when you stop needing the world to cooperate, you become unshakable. When you stop tying your peace to outcomes you cannot control, you find a peace that does not depend on circumstances. You become free, not free from the world, free in the world. Let's practice this now, gently, as your body settles and your breathing slows. Think of something you have been worrying about, a situation you feel is out of your hands, a relationship, a project, a decision someone else is making. Now ask, what part of this is actually up to me? Not the outcome, not their response, not the future, but what is mine to do, here, now, with the information and resources I have. Maybe it is having the conversation. Maybe it is letting go. Maybe it is trying one more time, or accepting that you have already done enough. Maybe it is simply choosing how you hold this uncertainty, with resentment or with openness. That part is yours. That part is always yours. And when you bring your attention back to that part, the anxiety often loosens. Not because the situation is resolved, but because you have remembered where your power actually lives. Marcus practiced this relentlessly. As emperor, he was surrounded by people trying to manipulate him, flatter him, deceive him. Entire provinces depended on his decisions. Lives hung in the balance. The pressure to control everything, to manage every outcome, to ensure every variable must have been crushing. And yet he writes, "Let it happen to what it happens to. Let the outcome be what it will be. Let people react as they will react. Let history judge as it will judge." Your job is not to control the universe. Your job is to do your part with integrity and then let go. This is not indifference, it is trust. Trust in the Logos, in the unfolding order. Trust that you are not required to carry the weight of outcomes that were never yours to carry. And it is also humility. The recognition that you are one small part of a vast, interconnected whole. You play your role, you do your best, and then you step back and let the cosmos continue. There is something deeply restful in this. You do not have to know how it all turns out. You do not have to ensure that everyone understands you, agrees with you, approves of you. You do not have to succeed by any external measure. You only have to act rightly in this moment with what is actually yours to shape. And what is yours to shape, always, is your intention, your effort, your virtue. Which leads us to the question, if outcomes are beyond your control and virtue is what matters, then what is virtue, and why does it outweigh everything else? There is a voice in you that knows what is right, not what is easy, not what is pleasant, not what will win approval or avoid discomfort, but what is right. The Stoics called it your ruling faculty, the rational moral core of your being, and their claim is this: your highest duty is to that voice, not to your appetites, not to your fears, and not to the expectations of the crowd. Duty over desire, always. This is not Puritanism. The Stoics did not hate pleasure. They enjoyed food, friendship, beauty. But they refused to make pleasure the goal, because pleasure is fleeting and often out of your control. You can desire health and still fall ill. You can desire wealth and still lose everything. You can desire to be loved and still be rejected. But you can always, in any circumstance, choose to do your duty, to act with integrity, to fulfill your role as a rational being. And that choice, Marcus insists, is enough, more than enough. It is the only thing that makes life meaningful. He writes, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. Death hangs over you. While you are still living, while you still can, become good. Become good. Not happy, not successful. Good. Good in the ancient sense. Excellent at being human. Living in accordance with reason, with virtue, with the nature you were given. And the virtues, for the Stoics, are few and clear: wisdom, courage, justice, moderation. Wisdom, seeing clearly what is true. Courage, acting rightly even when it is hard. Justice, treating others with fairness and compassion. Moderation, neither excess nor deficiency, but balance. These are not abstract ideals. They are practical tools, and they are always available, even when you are tired, even when you are afraid, even when the world is falling apart around you. You can still speak truthfully. You can still act justly. You can still show kindness. You can still choose courage over comfort. This is your duty, not as burden, but as privilege, because you are a rational being capable of virtue, and that capability is the most extraordinary fact about you. Marcus knew that his position was a gift and a weight. He had not asked to be emperor. He had been raised, trained, appointed by fate and circumstance. And once the mantle was on his shoulders, his duty was clear: to rule well, not for glory, not for legacy, but because it was the task given to him. He could not resign. He could not choose a simpler life. He could only fulfill the role that was his, with as much wisdom and justice as he could muster. And this is true for you as well. You did not choose your body, your family, your era, your circumstances, but you have been given a life, and with that life comes a duty to live it well, to meet each moment with the best version of yourself, to do what is right, not because it guarantees reward, but because it is right. This is not self-denial. It is self-actualization. Because when you live according to duty, according to your deepest values, you align with your own nature. You become coherent, whole, undivided, and that wholeness is its own reward. Desire whispers, "I want." Duty responds, "What is needed?" Desire says, "This is hard, I should quit." Duty says, "This is hard, therefore it is the right work." Desire seeks comfort. Duty seeks integrity. And integrity, over time, builds something desire never can: a self you can trust, a self that does not collapse when tested, a self that can look back without shame and forward without fear. Marcus was not perfect. He made mistakes. He struggled, but he kept returning to the question, "What does my duty require?" And in that returning, he built the inner citadel. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider your own duties, not the roles imposed by others, but the ones that arise from your own nature: the duty to be honest, the duty to be kind, the duty to grow, the duty to meet life with courage. You do not owe perfection, but you do owe effort. You owe presence. You owe the attempt to align your actions with your values. That is the work. And it is work that never ends, because there is always another moment, another choice, another opportunity to practice virtue. But the good news is this: you do not have to be good once and for all. You only have to be good now. And now is the only time there is. Marcus Aurelius was, in one sense, the realization of an ancient dream. Plato had imagined it centuries before, the philosopher king, a ruler who loved wisdom more than power, a leader who sought truth over applause, who governed with reason rather than appetite, who understood that to rule others well, one must first rule oneself. It was a beautiful idea. And history had, again and again, shown how rare it was. Most leaders crave power for its own sake. They use philosophy as decoration, as rhetoric, as a tool to manipulate. They speak of virtue while acting from vanity. They preach justice while hoarding privilege. But Marcus was different. He did not choose power. It chose him. And when it came, he carried it like a burden, not a crown. He studied philosophy not to impress the Senate, but to survive the demands of the throne without losing his soul. He read Epictetus, the former slave, and tried to live by the same principles that governed a man in chains. He reminded himself daily that being emperor did not make him special. It made him responsible, responsible to the millions who depended on his decisions, responsible to justice, responsible to reason, and most of all, responsible to himself, to the integrity of his own mind. The philosopher-king ideal is not about having power. It is about having wisdom in spite of power. It is about remaining humble when the world offers you every reason to be arrogant. It is about remembering that you are human, mortal, fallible, even when 1,000 voices call you divine. Marcus writes, "Soon you will have forgotten everything. Soon everybody will have forgotten you." This is not cynicism. It is clarity. It is the antidote to the intoxication of power. He sat on the throne of the world. He could have believed his own myth. He could have surrounded himself with sycophants, indulged every appetite, ruled by whim. No one could have stopped him. But every night, in his tent, he reminded himself, "You are dust. You will die. Your name will fade. The only thing that matters is whether you acted rightly, according to reason, while you had the chance." This is the philosopher-king's secret. Power does not corrupt those who do not seek it. When you hold authority lightly, as a temporary responsibility rather than a permanent identity, you can wield it without being consumed by it. You can make hard decisions without needing to be loved. You can lead without needing to dominate. You can serve without needing to be thanked. And this applies beyond emperors and kingdoms. You are, in some small sphere, a leader, a parent, a teacher, a colleague, a friend. You have influence. You make choices that ripple outward, affecting others in ways you may never fully see. And the philosopher-king ideal asks, will you lead with wisdom? Will you use your influence to serve what is good, or to serve your own ego? Will you remain accountable to truth, even when lies would be easier? This is the work of every conscious life. To govern oneself first, and only then, if called upon to help govern others. Marcus knew he was not wise because he was emperor. If anything, the throne made wisdom harder. The flattery, the pressure, the isolation, all of it conspired to distort his view. So he practiced, he read, he questioned himself, he reminded himself of his mortality. He imagined himself as just another fragment of the whole, no more important than a stone or a tree, each playing its part. And in that practice he became what Plato had imagined, not a king who dabbled in philosophy, but a philosopher who happened to hold a crown. The distinction is everything, because the goal is not to rule, the goal is to be good. And if ruling is your task, then to rule well is how you express your goodness. But the goodness comes first. The virtue comes first. The training of your own mind comes first. And when that foundation is solid, power cannot corrupt you. Praise cannot inflate you. Failure cannot destroy you. You remain steady because you know what you are, a rational soul, practicing virtue, doing your best with the role you were given. Nothing more, nothing less, and that is enough. The Stoics made a claim that sounds extreme, even absurd to modern ears. They said, "Virtue is the only good, vice is the only evil, everything else is indifferent. Wealth, indifferent. Health, indifferent. Reputation, pleasure, success, even life itself, all indifferent." This does not mean they did not value these things. A Stoic would prefer health to sickness, wealth to poverty, life to death. But these preferences did not constitute goodness, because goodness, for the Stoics, is only found in the quality of your will, in your choices, in your character. And character cannot be taken from you. It cannot be lost in a fire, stolen by a thief, or destroyed by disease. It is the one thing that remains entirely yours, in every circumstance, until your last breath. Marcus understood this deeply. He had wealth, power, fame, all the things the world calls good. And he also had chronic pain, dead children, relentless war, and the knowledge that the empire was crumbling even as he fought to hold it together. If his peace depended on external goods, he would have known no peace. But his peace did not depend on externals, it depended on his own integrity, on whether he met each moment with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. And that he could always do. Even in pain he could be patient. Even in loss he could be grateful for what remained. Even in betrayal he could respond with fairness rather than vengeance. This is the Stoic freedom. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom within hardship. The knowledge that no circumstance can make you less good unless you choose to be less good. The world can take everything from you, but it cannot take your virtue. And if virtue is the only good, then you already possess everything you need to live a meaningful life. You do not need to be rich, famous, admired, or even healthy. You need only to be good to act rightly, think clearly, and meet each moment with the best of your character. This is not a resignation, it is a revolution, because it means you are no longer at the mercy of fortune. You are no longer waiting for the world to give you permission to be whole. You are no longer enslaved to outcomes, opinions, or circumstances. You are free, here, now, and the practice is simple. In each moment, ask yourself, what does virtue require of me? Not what do I want, not what would be easiest, but what would the best version of myself do here? Sometimes virtue requires courage, speaking up, acting, taking a risk. Sometimes it requires patience, waiting, listening, holding your tongue. Sometimes it requires justice, ensuring fairness, standing up for another, refusing to participate in cruelty. Sometimes it requires wisdom, seeing clearly, thinking before reacting, choosing the longer view. The answer is not always obvious, but the question is always the same. And when you make that question the center of your life, everything else falls into place. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become aligned, coherent, whole. You are no longer pulled in 10 directions by competing desires and fears. You have a North Star, virtue, and no storm can take that star from the sky. Marcus writes, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, be one, not someday, not when you are wiser, braver, more prepared. Now, with what you have, in the circumstances you are in, because virtue is not a distant achievement. It is a choice, available in every moment, and each time you choose it, you strengthen the habit. You build the character. You become, little by little, the person you are capable of being. This is the only good, and it is always within reach. There is a stillness at the center of things, not the stillness of inertia, but the stillness of balance, the stillness of a spinning top that, at high speed, seems almost motionless. The Stoics called it equanimity. The Greeks called it ataraxia, unshakability. It is the quality of a mind that meets pleasure and pain, success and failure, praise and blame with the same steady presence. Not because the mind does not care, but because it does not add suffering to what is already present. It does not inflate the good or catastrophize the bad. It sees each event as part of the natural flow, neither more nor less than it is. Marcus practiced this daily. He had to. The life of an emperor is a storm of extremes. Victory one day, betrayal the next, glory in the morning, grief by evening. If he had let himself be tossed by each wave, he would have drowned. Instead, he trained himself to remain steady. The mind that is free from passions, he writes, is a citadel. No place is more secure. This does not mean suppressing emotion. Stoics felt deeply. Marcus mourned. He felt anger, frustration, weariness, but he did not let those feelings dictate his actions. He felt them, acknowledged them, and then returned to reason. He did not say, "I should not feel this." He said, "I feel this, and still I can choose what to do next." This is equanimity, not the absence of feeling, but the presence of choice within feeling. Let's practice it now. Think of something that happened recently, something that disturbed your peace, a disappointment, an injustice, a loss. Notice how your mind wants to narrate it, to explain why it should not have happened, to blame someone, to wish it were different. Now, gently, set the story aside. Return to the bare fact. This happened. It is in the past. I cannot change it. The only question that remains is, how will I carry it forward? With bitterness? With resentment? Or with acceptance and resolve? The event itself is neutral. It is your response that determines whether it harms you further or becomes part of your growth. This is the practice, and it is a practice something you do again and again, not something you master once and keep forever. You will be disturbed, your peace will crack, the world will press on you in ways that feel unbearable, and each time you will have the choice to meet it with equanimity or to let it break you. Equanimity does not mean you do not act. It means you act from clarity, not from reactivity. You do what needs to be done, and then you let go of the outcome. Marcus faced war, plague, betrayal, and loss. He could not control any of it, but he could control how he met it. And he chose again and again to meet it with calmness, with reason, with the steady knowledge that he was doing his best, and that was all any human could do. This is the gift of the Stoic path. Not a life without trouble, but a mind that can hold trouble without collapsing. A mind that can witness pain without becoming pain. A mind that can experience loss without becoming lost. That is equanimity. And it is built one moment, one choice, one breath at a time. They built him statues. They carved his face into coins. They called him divine, as they called all emperors divine. And Marcus knew it was theater. All things fade, he writes, and quickly become myth, and soon even myth is forgotten. The triumphs he won, the speeches he gave, the laws he enacted, all of it would pass. The crowds that cheered would die, the historians would move on. The very language in which his deeds were recorded would, in time, become unreadable. And so he asks himself, why do I care what they think? Why am I performing for an audience that will not exist in 100 years? Why am I chasing a legacy that will dissolve like morning mist? This is not nihilism, it is liberation. Because if glory is transient, then failure is too. If praise means nothing, then blame means nothing. If your reputation will not outlast you by more than a breath, then there is no reason to contort yourself to manage it. You are free to simply do what is right, free to act without needing applause, free to fail without shame, free to be misunderstood, ignored, forgotten, because none of that touches the core of what matters, whether you acted with integrity in the moments you were given. Marcus imagines, often, the great men of history, the emperors before him, the generals, the senators. He names them, and then he asks, where are they now? Dust, forgotten, their glory vanished. And if their glory vanished, why would his be any different? He is not trying to depress himself. He is trying to wake himself up, to remember that the only audience that matters is his own conscience. The only judgment that counts is the judgment of reason. Did he do his duty? Did he act justly? Did he live according to virtue? If yes, then it does not matter whether Rome remembers him. It does not matter whether historians praise him. It does not matter whether his name endures. He will have lived well, and that is enough. This teaching cuts deep in an age obsessed with visibility. We curate images. We measure worth in followers, likes, retweets. We chase fame as if it were a permanent possession, as if being seen were the same as being real. But the Stoic reminds us, fame is smoke, applause is noise, the crowd is fickle, easily swayed, easily bored, and tying your peace to their approval is a form of slavery. Better to be unknown and good than famous and hollow. Better to die forgotten than to live remembered for something false. Marcus knew this. He could have built monuments. He could have commissioned epics. He could have spent the empire's wealth ensuring his name echoed through the ages. Instead, he wrote private notes to himself. He practiced being good in the dark, where no one was watching. And ironically, it is precisely that humility, that indifference to glory, that makes his voice endure. Because what he wrote was true, and truth, unlike fame, does not fade. So tonight, let go of the need to be remembered. Let go of the craving for recognition. Let go of the anxiety about how you will be seen. Do what is right because it is right, and let the future take care of itself. Your glory is not in what others say about you. It is in how you live when no one is looking. Every day Marcus spoke to himself, not aloud usually, but in the private theater of his mind. He asked questions. He offered reminders. He corrected himself, encouraged himself, challenged himself. This is the Meditations, not a book for others, but a conversation with his own soul. And this practice, this art of inner dialogue, is one of the most powerful tools the Stoics left us, because you are always talking to yourself. The question is, what are you saying, and is it true? Most of us narrate our lives with harsh, distorted commentary. We catastrophize. We belittle ourselves. We replay the worst moments on an endless loop. We compare ourselves to fantasies. We predict disaster and call it realism. And this internal voice shapes everything. It determines how you interpret events, how you feel about yourself, how much energy you have, how much courage you can summon. If the voice is cruel, you will live in a cruel world. If the voice is wise, you will find wisdom even in hardship. So, the Stoic practice is this: become the teacher of your own mind. When fear arises, ask, is this fear of something real or something imagined? And if it is real, what can I actually do about it? When anger flares, ask, is this serving me, or am I giving away my power to someone who does not deserve it? When shame whispers, ask, did I act with integrity? If yes, then the shame is not mine to carry. If no, what can I do now to make it right? This is not self-help. This is self-governance. It is the practice of being a good parent to yourself, firm but kind, clear but compassionate. Marcus does this constantly in the Meditations. He catches himself in a moment of irritation and reminds himself, the person who wronged you is acting from ignorance. Be patient, be kind. He catches himself in despair and reminds himself, you have survived every difficult day so far. You are still here. That is enough. He catches himself craving comfort and reminds himself, you were not made for comfort. You were made for resilience, for effort, for virtue. This is the inner dialogue of a free person. Not passive acceptance, not harsh criticism, but active, rational coaching. And it works. Not because it makes life easy, but because it changes your relationship to life. You are no longer at the mercy of your first reaction. You are not your fear, your anger, your shame. You are the one who notices these things and chooses how to respond to them. And that noticing, that space between stimulus and response, is where all freedom lives. Tonight, try this. When a troubling thought arises, do not fight it. Do not try to push it away. Instead, speak to it. Say gently, I see you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I don't need to believe you right now. Or, thank you for this information. I'll consider it, but I am not going to let it dictate my next action. This is not denial. It is discernment. It is the practice of being the adult in your own inner household, rather than letting the most frightened part of you run the show. Marcus was an emperor, but he was also a student of his own mind. He knew that the greatest battles are not fought on the field, but in the silence of your own thoughts. And the good news is, you can win those battles, not by force, not by suppression, but by patient, clear, compassionate dialogue. You are both teacher and student, both guide and traveler, and the conversation between those two is what shapes your life. Marcus believed something radical for his time, and perhaps for ours as well. He believed that all human beings are kin, not metaphorically, not sentimentally, but actually fundamentally connected, part of the same rational order, fragments of the same cosmic mind. We are made for cooperation, he writes, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is therefore contrary to nature. This is not naive optimism. Marcus knew humanity's capacity for cruelty. He fought wars. He dealt with treachery, corruption, violence. He was not blind to the darkness, but he chose to see the darkness as ignorance, not as evil. He chose to respond with sympathy rather than hatred, because hatred, he knew, harms the one who hates. It turns you bitter, reactive, small. It puts you at war with reality, and it solves nothing. Sympathy, on the other hand, opens a door. It allows you to see the other person as they are, a fellow human, struggling with their own fears, their own wounds, their own mistaken ideas about what will bring them peace. When someone wrongs you, Marcus asks himself, what did they believe would make them happy? What fear or desire drove them? And often the answer softens him. They were not trying to hurt you. They were trying, clumsily, to meet their own needs. They were acting from ignorance, from a false idea of what is good. And if they are ignorant, then anger is the wrong response. Pity, perhaps. Compassion, certainly, but not hatred. This does not mean you allow harm. Justice is still necessary. Boundaries are still necessary. But justice can be delivered without malice. Boundaries can be set without contempt. You can say no firmly while still seeing the other person's humanity. This is what Marcus practiced, and it was not easy. He had advisers who betrayed him, generals who failed him, family members who disappointed him. He could have let bitterness consume him. Instead, he reminded himself, they are doing the best they can with the understanding they have, as am I. This is the brotherhood of man, not a fantasy of universal agreement, but a recognition of universal struggle. We are all trying to navigate this brief, confusing life. We are all prone to error. We all suffer. We all want to be happy, even when we pursue happiness in ways that cause suffering. And if we are all in the same condition, mortal, fallible, searching, then compassion is the only rational response. Marcus extends this even to his enemies. He writes, when you wake in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they do not know good from evil. And then he adds, but I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I know that the wrongdoer is related to me not by blood, but by sharing the same mind and the same portion of the divine. So I cannot be harmed by any of them, because no one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him. This is not weakness. This is strength. The strength to refuse to be dragged into bitterness, to refuse to mirror cruelty, to refuse to let the behavior of others dictate the quality of your own soul. You meet harm with justice, not revenge. You meet ignorance with patience, not contempt. You meet suffering with compassion, not indifference. And in doing so, you preserve your own humanity. Tonight, think of someone who has wronged you, someone you carry resentment toward. Now, gently, try to see them as Marcus would, not as an enemy, but as a fellow fragment of the whole, acting from confusion, reaching for a happiness they do not know how to find. This does not erase what they did, but it changes your relationship to it, and in that change you find freedom. Because carrying hatred is like carrying a hot coal. You are the one who gets burned. Put it down. The camp was loud. Soldiers shouted. Horses stamped. Metal clanged. Fires crackled. Messengers ran back and forth with news from the front. And in the middle of it all, Marcus sat quietly, a scroll on his lap, his attention fully present. This was his training, not to escape the chaos, but to remain centered within it. Mindfulness, for the Stoics, is not about finding a silent retreat. It is about bringing a quality of attention to whatever is happening right now in the middle of noise and pressure and distraction. It is the practice of coming back again and again to this breath, this moment, this choice. The mind wanders. It always has. It flees to the past, to the future, to fantasy, to worry. This is not failure. This is the nature of mind. But mindfulness is the practice of noticing the wandering and gently returning, not with force, not with judgment, but with the kind patience of a shepherd guiding a lamb back to the path. Marcus practiced this constantly, in the throne room, on the battlefield, in the quiet hour before dawn. He would catch his mind spinning out into anxiety or resentment, and he would say softly to himself, "Come back. You are here, now. This is the only moment you have. What does it require of you?" And the mind would settle, not perfectly, not permanently, but enough to make the next choice with clarity, enough to see what was actually in front of him, rather than the story he was telling himself about what was in front of him. This is the gift of mindfulness, not transcendence, not bliss, just clarity, just presence, just the ability to show up fully for the life you are actually living. And it is available now. Not after you meditate for 10 years, not after you go on a retreat, now, in the middle of whatever chaos surrounds you. Because the chaos is not the problem. The problem is believing that you need the chaos to stop before you can be at peace. You do not need silence to find stillness. You need presence, and presence is a choice you make and make again 1,000 times a day. Right now, notice your breath, just for a moment. Feel the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the air entering, the warmth of the air leaving. You did not have to change anything. You just had to pay attention. That is mindfulness. And when your mind wanders, when it leaps to tomorrow's worries or yesterday's regrets, you do not scold it. You simply notice, "Ah, I am thinking about the future," and then you return to the breath, to the body, to the present. This is the practice Marcus used to stay sane in a world that could have broken him. He did not have quiet, he did not have ease, but he had presence, and presence was enough. It allowed him to make decisions without being overwhelmed. It allowed him to feel grief without being consumed by it. It allowed him to act with courage because he was not lost in fear of what might happen. He was here, now, doing what the moment required, and you can do the same, not by escaping your life, but by fully inhabiting it. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. This is the path, and it is always available. Marcus thought about death every day, not because he was morbid, but because he was awake. Death is the one certainty, the one event you cannot avoid, postpone, or negotiate with. And the Stoics believed that facing this fact, really facing it, not just acknowledging it, was the key to living fully. Because when you know you will die, you stop pretending you have infinite time. You stop postponing the important conversations. You stop taking the people you love for granted. You stop wasting energy on trivial grievances. You wake up. Marcus writes, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Most people, he believed, live as if they were immortal. They delay. They wait for the perfect moment. They accumulate resentments and regrets as if there were endless time to resolve them later. But there is no later. There is only now, and now is slipping away breath by breath. So the Stoic practice is this. Imagine each morning that this could be your last day, not to frighten yourself, but to clarify yourself. If this were your last day, would you waste it being petty? Would you hold a grudge? Would you avoid saying I love you because it felt vulnerable? Or would you soften? Would you let go? Would you speak the truth you have been avoiding? Death is not the enemy. Death is the teacher. It teaches you what matters and what does not. And what does not matter is almost everything you spend your time worrying about. Your reputation, gone with you. Your wealth, left behind. Your grudges, your anxieties, your need to be right. All of it dissolves the moment you draw your last breath. What remains? And this is the only thing that remains, is how you lived, the quality of your character, the love you gave, the integrity you maintained, and that no one can take from you. Marcus knew he could die any night. On campaign, far from Rome, far from his family, far from the comforts of the palace, he could fall ill, he could be assassinated, he could simply not wake up. And this knowledge did not paralyze him, it freed him, because if he could die tonight, then he had no reason to postpone goodness, no reason to wait to be kind, to be just, to be brave. He had to be those things now, while he still could. And so he practiced dying, not physically, but mentally. He rehearsed it. He imagined the moment. He asked himself, if I die tonight, will I have lived as I intended? Will I regret what I said or did not say? Will I have acted with virtue? And if the answer was no, he had time to correct it, time to apologize, to try again, to choose better. This is the gift of memento mori. Remember you will die. It is not a curse. It is permission to live. Permission to stop pretending you have forever. Permission to stop accumulating things you do not need. Permission to stop trying to control what was never yours to control. You have this life, this body, this span of days, and then you will return to the elements, and the universe will continue without you, as it did before you, as it will after you. And that is okay. That is nature. That is the pattern. That is the way of things. And knowing this, really knowing it, you can finally let go. Let go of the fear. Let go of the grasping. Let go of the need for more time, more comfort, more certainty. You have enough. You are enough. And this moment is enough. So live it well. Love fully. Act justly. Speak truthfully. And when the end comes, meet it calmly, as you would meet an old friend who has come to take you home. Who are you? Not your name, not your role, not your achievements or failures, but the part of you that is aware of all of that, the part that watches, that chooses, that remains even when everything else changes. The Stoics called it the ruling faculty, the inner self, the fragment of the divine reason that inhabits your particular body for a brief time. And they believed that this self is not separate from the cosmos. It is the cosmos, waking up in you, knowing itself through you. You are not an isolated speck, lost in an indifferent void. You are an expression of the same rational order that spins galaxies and unfolds flowers. The same intelligence that governs the stars governs you. This is not poetry, this is Stoic physics. The universe, for Marcus, is not dead matter. It is living reason, logos, unfolding through time, and you are a temporary node in that unfolding, a place where the cosmos becomes conscious of itself. You are the universe experiencing what it is like to be you. And when you understand this, when you feel it, not just think it, everything changes. Because if you are the cosmos, then nothing that happens to you is outside the cosmic plan. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Every experience, every loss, every joy, every challenge, all of it is the universe teaching itself through you. You are not here to be comfortable. You are here to participate, to witness, to respond, to be a particular flavor of consciousness for a particular span of time. And when your time is done, you will dissolve back into the whole, and the whole will continue, enriched by what you learned, by what you contributed, by the unique pattern you made in the fabric of existence. This is not impersonal. It is deeply personal, because you are not generic. You are this specific life, this specific consciousness, this specific way of being human, and no one else can do that. Only you can live your life. Only you can meet the moments given to you. Only you can offer what you uniquely have to offer. And the cosmos needs you to do that. Not because it will collapse without you, but because you are part of its becoming. You are a thread in the weaving, and the pattern would be incomplete without you. Marcus knew this. He felt it in the quiet hours. He felt it under the stars, in the vastness of the frontier, in the smallness of his own body against the enormity of the world. He was not separate. He was connected. He was part. He was whole, even in his fragmentation. And so are you. You are not alone. You are held. You are part of something vast and beautiful and rational, and your task is simply to play your part well, to live according to your nature, to contribute your note to the symphony. That is all, and it is everything. There is a practice Marcus returns to when everything is falling apart. He lists what he is grateful for, not the grand things, the simple things, the small mercies that, in the middle of crisis, can anchor you to what is still true, still present, still good. He thanks the gods for his teachers, for the people who shaped him, for the books he read, for the discipline he learned, for the breath in his lungs, for the fact that he can still choose, still think, still act. This is not toxic positivity. It is not pretending that suffering does not exist. It is choosing to notice what remains even in the midst of loss, because there is always something remaining, always something that has not been taken, always something that, if you pay attention, reveals itself as a gift. Even in adversity, especially in adversity, gratitude is possible, not for the adversity itself, but for what it reveals, for the strength you did not know you had, for the people who showed up, for the clarity that comes when everything else is stripped away. Marcus faced plague, war, betrayal, the deaths of his children. He had every reason to despair. And yet, in his private writings, he returns again and again to gratitude. Gratitude that he was born in a time where philosophy was available. Gratitude that he was given the education to understand it. Gratitude that he had mentors who cared. Gratitude that he was still alive, still capable of virtue, still able to meet each moment with presence. This is the practice, not to deny suffering, but to notice what else is true. You are suffering, and you are also breathing, and you are also held by the earth, and you are also capable of love, and you are also learning, and you are also in this moment alive. All of these things are true at once. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it gives you a place to stand in the middle of pain. It reminds you that you are not only your suffering, you are also your capacity to notice beauty, to feel connection, to continue, and that capacity is a gift. Tonight, try this. Think of something hard you are facing, something that feels heavy, unfair, too much, and then ask, what is still here? What has not been taken? Maybe it is a friend. Maybe it is your mind. Maybe it is the fact that you have survived every difficult day so far and are still here. Name it, quietly, without pressure. Just notice it. That is gratitude. And it is medicine, not because it makes everything better, but because it reminds you that you are more than your pain. You are also your capacity to witness, to endure, to find meaning even in the dark, and that capacity is enough. The Stoics had a simple maxim: live according to nature. But what does that mean? It means living according to your nature as a rational, social being. It means aligning your choices with reason rather than impulse. It means recognizing that you are part of a larger whole and acting in ways that serve that whole, not just your isolated self. It means accepting the natural rhythms of life, growth and decay, gain and loss, health and sickness, life and death, without demanding that they be different. Nature does not promise you a long life. It does not promise you comfort. It does not promise you fairness. But it does give you reason and will and the capacity for virtue, and that is enough to live well. Marcus saw this everywhere, in the changing seasons, in the cycle of birth and death, in the way a plant grows toward the light, in the way a body heals, in the way a community, left to itself, organizes around cooperation. Nature is not random. It is ordered, and human beings, as part of nature, thrive when they align with that order. This means acting rationally. It means cooperating with others. It means accepting what comes without bitterness. It means fulfilling your role, whatever it is, with integrity. You are not separate from nature. You are an expression of it, and when you live in harmony with your nature, you live well. This is not about returning to some primitive past. It is about recognizing what you are: a rational, moral agent, and living as one. You have the capacity for reason, use it. You have the capacity for virtue, practice it. You have the capacity for connection, honor it. That is living according to nature, and it is the path to peace. The Stoics believed in fate. Everything that happens is determined by the unfolding of the cosmic order. The chain of cause and effect stretches back to the beginning of time and forward to its end. Nothing is random. Nothing is outside the pattern. And yet, paradoxically, you are free. Not free to change fate, but free to choose how you respond to it. Free to align your will with the rational order or to resist it. Free to act virtuously or not. This is rational will, and it is the only freedom that matters. You cannot choose what happens to you, but you can choose what it means to you. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control your intentions. And in that control, in that choice, you are utterly free. Marcus writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the heart of Stoic freedom: not escape, not immunity, but sovereignty over your own will. No one can force you to believe something. No one can force you to hate, to fear, to despair. They can pressure you. They can harm you. But the final choice of how you interpret and respond remains yours. And that is enough. That is everything. Because when you realize that your freedom lives in your will, not in your circumstances, you become unshakable. The world can take your wealth, your health, your life, but it cannot take your virtue. It cannot take your reason. It cannot take your will unless you surrender it. And when you refuse to surrender it, when you say, I am the one who decides what this means and how I will respond, you step into a freedom that no tyrant, no disaster, no tragedy can touch. This is the promise of Stoicism, not a life without suffering, but a life where suffering does not define you. You are free. Here, now, in the choices you make, in the will you bring to each moment. And that freedom is the foundation of everything else. Marcus had the power to execute anyone he chose. A word from him, and a life would end. No trial, no appeal, just the will of the emperor. But he used that power sparingly. He was known for clemency, for fairness, for hearing all sides before deciding. This was not weakness, it was wisdom, because justice without mercy is cruelty, and mercy without justice is cowardice. The balance is everything. You must hold people accountable. You must protect the innocent. You must enforce boundaries. But you must do so without hatred, without revenge, without losing sight of the humanity of the person being judged. Marcus practiced this daily. Advisers urged him to be harsh, to make examples, to rule through fear. But he chose another way. He chose to see the accused as a human being, acting from ignorance, making mistakes as all humans do. He punished when necessary, but he did so with regret, not glee, with sadness, not satisfaction. This is the Stoic ideal. Justice, yes, always justice, but tempered by compassion, guided by reason, delivered without malice, and in that balance society thrives. People are held accountable, but they are not dehumanized. Order is maintained, but mercy is still possible. This applies to your own life as well. You must set boundaries. You must say no. You must hold people accountable for their actions. But you can do so while still seeing them as fragments of the whole, still recognizing their humanity, still wishing them well. Justice and mercy, not either or, both, always both. For the Stoics, meditation was not about emptying the mind. It was about training it to see clearly, to judge fairly, to respond virtuously, to remain steady in the face of disturbance. This is what Marcus did every night. He reflected on his day. He examined his choices. He asked himself, did I act with virtue? Where did I fail? Where did I succeed? What can I do better tomorrow? This is meditation as ethical practice, not as escape, but as preparation, not as transcendence, but as training. You are training your mind to be a good instrument, to serve you, not to tyrannize you, to see clearly, not to distort. And the practice is simple. Sit quietly, review your day, notice where you acted according to your values. Celebrate that. Notice where you did not. Forgive yourself, learn, resolve to do better. That is the practice, and it is enough. You do not need hours. You do not need a cushion or a mantra or a guru. You need only the willingness to look honestly at your own life and to take responsibility for it. This is meditation as Marcus practiced it, and it is available to you now. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself, how did I show up today? Did I act with kindness, with courage, with integrity? Where did I fall short? And what will I do tomorrow to do better? That is the practice. and it will change your life if you do it every day, not because it makes you perfect, but because it makes you conscious, awake, responsible. And that is what the Stoic path is all about. Peace is not found in the absence of trouble. It is found in the presence of acceptance. Acceptance of what is. Acceptance of your limits. Acceptance of impermanence. Acceptance of the fact that you are not in control of most of what happens, but you are in control of how you meet it. This is serenity. Not passivity, not resignation, but clear-eyed recognition of reality, combined with full commitment to acting virtuously within that reality. Marcus knew that most of what disturbed him was the story he told about what was happening, not what was actually happening. When he let go of the story, when he stopped demanding that the world conform to his preferences, he found peace. Not because the world changed, but because he did. This is the serenity of acceptance, and it is available now, not when your life is perfect, not when you have figured everything out, but now, in the middle of uncertainty, in the middle of struggle, in the middle of being human, you can accept this moment. You can stop fighting it. You can say, "This is what is. I may not like it. I may work to change it, but I accept that, for now, this is the reality, and I will meet it with grace." That acceptance is the beginning of peace. Virtue is not an idea, it is a habit. You do not become good by understanding goodness. You become good by practicing goodness again and again until it becomes second nature. Marcus knew this. He did not rely on inspiration. He relied on discipline. Every morning he reminded himself of his values. Every evening he reviewed his actions. Every moment he practiced bringing his attention back to what mattered. This is moral training, and it is the only path to lasting change. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. You need to show up day after day and practice the virtues you want to embody. Over time, those practices become habits, and those habits become your character, and your character becomes your fate. So, what habits are you building? What are you practicing every day? If you practice resentment, you will become resentful. If you practice gratitude, you will become grateful. If you practice courage, you will become brave. The choice is yours, and it is made not once but every day in small actions that compound over time. This is the work, not dramatic, not glamorous, but effective. Train yourself, build the habits, and trust that, over time, you will become what you practice. Marcus writes, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. This is the trap. You let strangers, critics, admirers define your worth. You give away your peace to people who do not even know you. But your worth is not determined by applause. It is not diminished by criticism. Your worth is determined by whether you acted with integrity, and only you can judge that." The Stoic practice is this: detach from praise and blame. Do what is right because it is right, not because it will be rewarded. Avoid what is wrong because it is wrong, not because you will be punished. Live by your own internal compass, and let the crowd do what it will. They will praise you one day and condemn you the next. They are fickle, distracted, swayed by whim, but you remain steady, because you know what you are about, and you do not need their validation to be good. This is freedom, and it is yours the moment you stop seeking approval from anyone other than your own conscience. The Stoic is not passive. They do not sit back and let life happen to them. They engage, they act, they fight when fighting is necessary, but they fight without bitterness. They endure without complaint. They persist without needing the world to acknowledge their effort. Marcus was a warrior. He spent years on campaign, defending the empire, leading men into battle, enduring the hardships of war. And he did so with a kind of calm ferocity, not because he loved war, but because it was his duty. He writes, "Endure pain without complaint, meet hardship without resentment, do your work without needing to be thanked." This is the Stoic warrior, not someone who seeks conflict, but someone who does not flinch when it comes. You too are a warrior, not on a battlefield perhaps, but in the trenches of daily life, facing illness, facing loss, facing uncertainty, facing the slow grind of responsibility. And the Stoic path asks, can you endure without losing your center? Can you persist without becoming bitter? Can you keep showing up even when no one is watching, even when the reward is distant or invisible? This is the test, and it is the same test Marcus faced 2,000 years ago. The world is hard, the body fails, people disappoint, plans collapse, and still you continue. Not because you are rewarded, but because it is your nature to continue, to endure, to persist in virtue, no matter what. That is the Stoic warrior, and you are one. Marcus had access to every luxury the ancient world could offer, but he chose simplicity. He slept on the ground in his tent. He ate simple food. He wore plain clothes. He did not surround himself with excess, not because he thought luxury was evil, but because he knew it was a trap. The more you have, the more you need. The more you accumulate, the more you fear losing it. Simplicity is freedom. It is the recognition that you do not need much to live well. You need food, shelter, basic health, meaningful work, connection. The rest is extra, and extra comes with a cost. The Stoic practice is this: reduce your needs, simplify your life, let go of what you do not need, not as asceticism, but as liberation, because every possession is a responsibility, every luxury is a vulnerability. The less you need, the less the world can threaten you. And when you discover that you can be happy with very little, you become truly rich, not in wealth, but in freedom. Marcus knew this. He could have lived in palaces. Instead, he lived in tents. He could have indulged every appetite. Instead, he practiced restraint, and in that restraint, he found strength, because he knew that his peace did not depend on comfort. It depended on virtue. And virtue is available in any circumstance, at any level of wealth or poverty. So, what can you let go of? What excess can you shed? What simplification would free you? Not as deprivation, but as liberation. Try it, and notice how much lighter you feel. We return, again, to the inner citadel, the fortress of the mind, the one place no enemy can breach. This is not a metaphor. This is the Stoic reality. Your mind is the only space you truly control. And when you fortify it, when you train it to see clearly, judge fairly, respond virtuously, you become impregnable. The world can storm your walls. It can press from every side, but it cannot enter unless you open the gates. And you open the gates when you let external events disturb your peace, when you let others' opinions define you, when you tie your happiness to outcomes you cannot control. The practice, then, is this: guard the gates. Be vigilant about what you let in. A cruel remark? You do not have to let it in. You can observe it, assess whether it is true, and if not, let it pass. A failure? You do not have to let it define you. You can learn from it and continue. A loss, you do not have to let it destroy you. You can grieve it and still find meaning. The fortress is yours, and it is impenetrable when you remember that your peace, your worth, your goodness are not hostage to the world. They are within, always, and nothing outside can touch them unless you allow it. This is the final teaching, the one Marcus returns to again and again. Protect your mind, train your thoughts, guard your inner space, and you will find that no matter what happens outside, there is a stillness within that cannot be shaken. Nothing outside you is evil. Events happen, people act, the world unfolds, but the judgment, this is evil, is something you add. The Stoics believed that the only true evil is vice, injustice, cowardice, cruelty, dishonesty, and these are qualities of the will, not of external events. A storm is not evil, it is weather. A disease is not evil, it is biology. A betrayal is not evil, it is a human acting from ignorance. This does not mean you do not respond. You still seek shelter from the storm. You still treat the disease. You still set boundaries with the betrayer. But you do not add the interpretation, "This should not be," or "The universe has wronged me." You see clearly. You act rightly. And you let go of the added layer of suffering that comes from calling the event evil. Marcus practices this rigorously. When someone wrongs him, he does not say they are evil. He says they are ignorant. They do not understand what is truly good. And that shift from evil to ignorance changes everything, because ignorance can be met with compassion. Evil demands hatred, and hatred always harms the one who hates. So, let go of the label. See the world as it is, and respond with wisdom, not with bitterness. Every night Marcus imagined his death, not to frighten himself, but to prepare himself, to remind himself that this could be his last night, and if it were, had he lived as he intended. This is the practice of memento mori. Remember death, not morbidly, but clearly. Because when you remember that time is finite, you stop wasting it. You stop postponing goodness. You stop holding grudges as if you had infinite chances to let them go. You act now. You love now. You forgive now. You practice virtue now, because now is all you have. And this awareness, this clear-eyed recognition of mortality, is what makes life precious. Not tragic, precious. You have been given this brief span of consciousness, this particular body, this particular set of relationships and challenges and joys. And one day it will end, all of it. And that ending is not a curse. It is what gives the beginning and middle their meaning. So, live as if you will die soon, because you will. And let that truth wake you up to the beauty and responsibility of being alive. Marcus was not soft. He made hard decisions. He enforced laws. He led armies. He did not flinch from what needed to be done, but he did so with compassion. He saw the people he judged as fellow fragments of the whole. He saw their suffering. He wished them well, even as he held them accountable. This is the Stoic way: justice without cruelty, firmness without hatred. You can set a boundary and still love the person on the other side of it. You can say no and still wish them peace. You can protect yourself and still recognize their humanity. Compassion is not weakness. Compassion is strength. It is the ability to see suffering and not turn away, to see wrongdoing and respond with clarity rather than vengeance. This is the balance Marcus practiced, and it is the balance that makes a good life possible. The Stoics believed that the universe is governed by divine reason logos, and you, as a rational being, are a fragment of that logos. You carry it within you, you participate in it. And when you align your will with the divine reason, when you act according to wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, you are acting in harmony with the cosmos itself. This is not mysticism. This is physics. This is the recognition that you are not separate from the rational order. You are part of it. And when you align with it, you find peace. Not because the world becomes easy, but because you are no longer at war with reality. You are home. You are where you were always meant to be. You are fulfilling your nature, and in that fulfillment there is a deep, unshakable joy. True freedom is not the absence of constraint. It is the presence of self-mastery. When you control your own mind, you are free. When you do not, you are enslaved to fear, to desire, to opinion, to circumstance. The Stoic path is the path of self-mastery, not as domination, but as governance, not as suppression, but as alignment. You learn to govern your thoughts. You learn to choose your responses. You learn to act according to your values rather than your impulses. And in that mastery, you find freedom. Freedom to act, freedom to love, freedom to persist, freedom to be at peace no matter what the world throws at you. This is the promise, and it is fulfilled not through escape, but through discipline. Discipline in thought, discipline in action, discipline in habit. Over time, that discipline becomes second nature, and you become free. At the center of all this practice is a single goal, a tranquil soul, not a soul that feels nothing, but a soul that is not tossed by every wave, a soul that can witness suffering without drowning in it, a soul that can experience joy without clinging to it, a soul that is at peace with what is. This is the fruit of the Stoic path, not transcendence, not escape, but tranquility. The calm that comes from knowing you are doing your best, the peace that comes from accepting what you cannot change, the strength that comes from acting according to your values. This tranquility is available now, not someday, not when your life is perfect, but now, in the middle of imperfection. You can be at peace, here, now. And that peace is the greatest gift the Stoic path offers. Philosophy, for Marcus, was not an academic pursuit. It was a daily exercise, a practice, a discipline. Every morning he reminded himself of Stoic principles. Every evening he reviewed his actions. Every moment he tried to live according to virtue. This is philosophy as lived practice, and it is what makes the difference between knowing and being. You can read every Stoic text, you can understand every concept, but if you do not practice, you do not change. The practice is everything, and the practice is simple. Here is a 7-day path you can follow. Day 1, morning reflection. Before you begin your day, spend 5 minutes reminding yourself of your values. What kind of person do you want to be today? Write it down or say it quietly to yourself. Day 2, the dichotomy of control. Throughout the day, notice when you are worrying about something outside your control. Gently redirect your attention to what is within your power. Do this as many times as needed. Day 3, practicing gratitude. At the end of the day, list 3 things you are grateful for. They can be small, they can be ordinary. Just notice what is still present, still good. Day 4, inner dialogue. When a troubling thought arises, speak to it kindly. Name it, question it, offer yourself the truth. Practice being the teacher of your own mind. Day 5. Memento Mori. Spend a few minutes imagining that today could be your last, not to frighten yourself, but to clarify what matters. How will you live if time is short? Day 6. Evening Review. Before sleep, review your day. Where did you act with virtue? Where did you fall short? Forgive yourself. Resolve to do better tomorrow. Day 7. Simplification. Let go of something you do not need, a possession, a grudge, an expectation. Practice simplicity and notice how it feels. These are not rigid rules. They are invitations, practices you can adapt, modify, repeat. The point is this: make philosophy a daily habit, not something you think about, but something you do. Over time, that doing will transform you. The Stoics believed in the eternal return, the idea that the cosmos cycles endlessly. Everything that has happened will happen again. Every life will be lived again. And if this is true, then the question is, would you be willing to live your life exactly as it is, again and again forever? If not, then what needs to change? This is not a literal doctrine. It is a thought experiment, a way of asking, am I living in a way I can be proud of? Am I meeting each moment with integrity? Or am I postponing, avoiding, waiting for someday? The eternal return strips away excuses. It says, this life, right now, is the only one you have, and it will be enough if you live it well. So, what is your present duty? What does this moment ask of you? Not tomorrow's tasks, not yesterday's regrets, but this moment, here, now. That is where life happens. That is where virtue is practiced. That is where you become who you are. And if you meet each moment with presence, with integrity, with effort, then you are living the only life worth living. The life of a conscious, responsible, courageous human being. Marcus did not write the Meditations for history. He wrote them for himself. He wrote them to stay sane, to stay good, to remember what mattered when everything else was chaos. And yet, 2,000 years later, his words endure, not because he sought fame, but because he sought truth. And truth, unlike fame, does not fade. The Logos, the rational order, continues. It does not depend on you. It does not need you to believe in it. It simply is. And when you align with it, when you live according to reason and virtue, you participate in something eternal. Your body will dissolve, your name will fade, your empire will crumble, but the Logos endures. And the good you did, the virtue you practiced, the love you gave, all of it becomes part of the pattern. It is not lost, it is woven in, and that is legacy enough. You do not need to be remembered. You only need to have lived rightly, to have been part of the unfolding, to have played your note in the symphony. And when your note ends, the music continues. That is the Stoic promise. Not immortality, not escape, but meaning, participation, connection. You are part of the whole, and the whole is eternal. And so, in a way, you are too, not as an individual ego, but as a fragment of the Logos, contributing to the ongoing becoming of the cosmos. That is enough, more than enough. And so we return, one last time, to the tent. The lamp burns low. Marcus sets down his stylus. The words are written not for posterity, but for tomorrow, for the next hard decision, for the next wave of grief, for the next moment of doubt. He has done his work. He has reminded himself of what is true. He has returned to the inner citadel, and now he rests. Outside, the frontier sleeps, the empire sleeps, the stars wheel overhead, indifferent and beautiful, and Marcus, emperor of Rome, fragment of the cosmos, student of philosophy, closes his eyes. He has lived today according to nature. He has practiced virtue. He has met each moment as best he could. And that is all any human can do. The rest, the outcome, the legacy, the future, is not his to control. It is the work of the Logos, and the Logos, as always, continues. So too with you. You have listened. You have reflected. You have walked through these teachings. And now the work is yours. The work of living according to nature, the work of practicing virtue, the work of building the inner citadel, one thought, one choice, one breath at a time. You will forget, you will fail, you will struggle, and that is okay. That is human, that is the work. But you will also remember. You will rise, you will continue. And in that continuing, you will become what you were always meant to be, a conscious, rational, virtuous fragment of the whole, doing your part, living your life, meeting each moment with presence and courage. That is the Stoic path, and it is open to you now, and always. Sleep well, wake with purpose, and live as if this life, this brief, precious, impossible life, is exactly what it is. A gift, a responsibility, a chance to become good.